Hello, I'm Bob Orr, and welcome to Washington Unplugged. With Wednesday's health care speech before a joint session of Congress, President Obama this week faces what some say could be a make-or-break moment for his administration. As you may know, he's getting pressure from liberals in his own party to call for a so-called public option. At the same time, conservative Democrats are afraid of the price tag of that. But that's hardly Mr. Obama's only worry. Right now, he's also under attack from right-wing talk show hosts, and even his speech tomorrow to America's school children seems to be drawing some fire. Joining me to talk about all of this today is Andy Barr from Politico. Andy, thanks for coming. And also standing by in New York, Nick Ragone with Ketchum Incorporated, a media strategy firm in New York. Nick, thanks for joining us as well.
Good to be here.
Andy, let's start with you. Just take the big macro picture for me, if you will. The president seems to be having a little trouble getting traction for his agenda and now faces what some see as a series of crises.
That's right, and this week for them is huge in terms of regaining control of the health care debate. The problem for them is they've faced distraction after distraction, whether we're talking about those town halls in August. That energy seems to have spilled over now with this controversy of Van Jones. Really the people driving the agenda, not Republicans or Democrats or the White House. It's really these kind of, conservative, sometimes even fringe groups that are able to really kind of push a message, really hit the White House on stuff they don't want to be talking about.
We want to break all of that down. You mentioned Van Jones. He's the administration's environmental advisor, at least he was until Saturday. And over the course of the weekend, he was dismissed from his job. Let's take a look at what Van Jones said about energy policies of the former President Bush.
To begin to drill more, to drill offshore, to drill here, to drill there, to liquefy coal, to go with oil shale and tar sands, do whatever you can to get more petroleum into the system. And we heard our president saying just that. That's what he wants to do. And I hate to say this, and I hope I don't offend anybody, but the President of the United States sounded like a crackhead when he said that. Just a little bit more. Just a little bit. Just a little bit more, a little bit more, a little more, a little more. A little bit more petroleum. I can get some more, just get some more. It was shameful. Am I wrong? Did you see this? Like a crackhead trying to lick the crack pipe for a fix.
Wow, Van Jones there talking about former President Bush. Now, Mr. Jones resigned late Saturday night. Nick, this is not in the administration's playbook. This didn't go according to plan. What happened here?
Well, I love Van Jones' statement. He said, I hope I don't offend anybody, and then he goes on to do exactly that, and he knew what he was doing. And so the right-wing fringe groups didn't get Van Jones. Van Jones got Van Jones, and that's actually indicative of a bigger problem with the Obama administration as far as vetting people. I mean, they've had lots of miscues from Daschle and out of Van Jones. But that aside, the earlier point's the right one, which is this week the president needs to get back to the agenda. It's not just the fringe groups, though. The last 6 to 8 weeks have been a disaster for him. They introduced the health care legislation the wrong way. They try to ram it down the American public's throat. They left it too vague. They got off stride with the Professor Gates thing. And now this week, Van Jones threatened to do all that. So he needs to take this week and seize the initiative, or else the whole fall could be in jeopardy as far as his message.
Now, Nick, tomorrow the president will speak to America's school children. That seems benign. I mean, he's making a statement about stay in school, study hard, and even that seems to have backfired on the White House.
Yeah, that one, it's harder to explain that. I think that is really more the fringe right trying to find anything to get up in arms over. Other presidents, Reagan, I think Bush the first, has spoken to school children. I will say, though, that his speech did seem a little bit more like focus group testing than it did a speech. There was a little unease there, but I think the far right might be overplaying their hands with that one. It's hard to find fault with the president trying to speak to the school children of America.
So, Andy, Nick makes the point, and you made the point as well, the administration really has to get this thing back on track. But now here tomorrow is this school speech, and that will dominate the news headlines probably, or at least the news cycle for 24 hours.
Right, and of course their message right now is health care. They really want to drive that home. They've got that joint speech to Congress on Wednesday, but this school speech has been a huge distraction. You've got a lot of people on the right saying that this is Obama trying to indoctrinate kids. It's kind of hard to think of something that seems more apolitical than talking to kids about studying hard and making sure they focus on their education. You had Education Secretary Arne Duncan saying that the goal is just to get 1 or 2 kids, maybe a little more focused, move from a B to an A student, and that would be a huge win for them. But them they've got a short time frame where they can move the needle on this healthcare debate. When you think about the things they've got to get done in the rest of this legislative session, which really isn't that much longer left now, they really have to push this week and the next. Otherwise, they are in a really bad position.
So, Nick, for a minute, put on the hat, if you will, of White House advisor. You're in the media strategy planning with the Obama administration. How do you do this? How do you get the message back? What would you be telling them?
Well, the first thing I would say is don't get off message. I agree the speech to the school children seems innocuous, but that's another news cycle they're going to lose because people are going to be focused on that. And it needs to be healthcare, healthcare, healthcare for the next 2 or 3 weeks. Every day you get one message, you get one shot at a message from the White House, and it's got to be healthcare. You can't be extemporizing about other things. You can't get distracted into other things because, as Andy said, you got a couple 4, 6, 8 weeks to get this done before they go into recess for the elections and or midterm. And he's got to get it done now or else it's going to be lost.
Now, the president and the administration kind of adopted a strategy, it seems, at the beginning on health care, that they didn't put out, here's the blueprint of what we want. They trusted that Congress would come up with a plan that they could sign off on. But getting Congress to agree has been almost impossible here. You have liberals who say, well, it has to have a public option. Then you have these conservative Democrats, a lot of them in the South, saying, I can't sell tax hikes at home. So what has to happen politically?
Well, the interesting thing is they set this up as something where they thought, okay, legislatively, what makes the most sense is we're going to have the House and Senate agree on a bill, any bill, and then we're going to go to conference and hash out the details. The problem is the politics of it and the messaging of it, because no one's really clear what the White House plan is. No one really knows what exactly they want. We aren't even sure if they want or don't want the public option in that. So it kind of makes sense if you're operating in some sort of political vacuum. But in terms of driving home the media message every day, in terms of the politics and people going home, representatives and senators going home to their districts and trying to sell this, it's very unclear what the White House wants, has really muddled the message, and has created problems for some of their allies on Capitol Hill.
At the same time, while health care is the topic #1 for the week, at the end of the week, there's going to be this march on Washington, which has been put together by some anti-big government folks. And we don't know how many people are going to show up, but there again, Nick, these are people coming to town. They're going to be on cable television. They'll be in the papers, and their message is going to be, this is big government. It doesn't work. So again, how do you get that agenda back from them?
Well, I mean, you can look at the lineage of it. It goes from the Tea Parties, right, which happened, 3, 4 months ago and kind of dominated right-wing talk shows and right-wing news and bled into the mainstream media. Then you had these town hall meetings that have been just a total train wreck for the Democrats and the president. Again, I think there's real anger out there, and it fomented in those town halls. And then you're going to have this march. I think the president, I think Andy's point is right. He hasn't defined his own bill. He left it up to Congress, and I think that's been the biggest mistake, is that it's so vague that the opponents to it are picking apart what they want to see in it, and the president really doesn't have his own plan. There's 5 different plans floating around in Congress, and I think he needs to spend the next 2, 3, 4 weeks defining what the public option means, selling it hard, and putting some real description around it so people know what is it that we're talking about. Because right now it's still kind of vague, and the opponents of the plan are using, the death panels and other parts. They're finding little pieces here and there and sort of speaking ill against the whole thing. And I think the president needs to make it much more descriptive and clear.
Part of the problem, though, Nick, is that the administration's opponents here, if you will, seem to be people with talk shows and cable television, some of the right-wing bloggers. How do you combat those people? Because they're looking for every little thing they can to try to take the administration plan off track.
Well, I mean, it's no different, though. George W. Bush had, left-wing bloggers, Daily Kos, and left-wing shows like Keith Olbermann. So the idea that, that's exclusive to the right wing only, having bloggers and radio and TV is I don't think it's quite true. I mean, it's been on the left as well. I think the only difference is that they're more active, they're more vocal. I think there is a hint of real anger over the way health care was handled, and that was trying to ram through Congress so quickly. And it is a huge issue, and I think the president would have been wiser to step back and said, we're going to take our time on this and do it right and really air it out instead of trying to force it through Congress. And I think the way the administration has gone about it has really lit up the right in a way that they haven't in a long time.
And finally, as we wrap this up, both of you guys can take a crack at this. Andy, we'll start with you. Give me some context. How big of a moment is this for the president?
This is huge. This week is huge in terms of regaining control of this message. If they can't do it with that speech on Wednesday, it's kind of unclear what they're going to do. Now they are going to pass some sort of bill. He is going to sign something he can call healthcare reform. But what's in it, what they can call a win, is going to get determined this week.
And Nick, what about you? If he doesn't get a big win on this point, how much trouble is he in?
He's in huge trouble if he doesn't get a huge win. I agree with Andy, he'll get something, but whether or not it has the public option and the left embraces it, if you think about it, the big three issues are still the economy, it's sputtering, the deficit is spiraling out of control, and if he doesn't get healthcare overhaul, he goes into the 2010 elections not having done all that much, and I think it's going to be, if the Republicans win in New Jersey and Virginia in November this year, they're going to have a lot of momentum. So this is a make-or-break deal, I think.
All right. Nick Ragone from Ketchum, thanks for joining us today. And
Good to be here.
Barr from Politico, thanks for stopping by as well.
Thanks for having me.
And thanks to all of you for watching Washington Unplugged today on Labor Day. Join us again tomorrow at 12:30 p.m. on CBSNews.com. I'm Bob Orr. Have a great holiday.